Of course, the United States of America needs to ask the drivers where their troops come from, but in my opinion, everyone understands that the United States of America endlessly confesses the philosophy of using regional countries and peoples for its own purposes. Selfish, opportunistic, temporary foreign aid. 3. Political foreign policy. Low, but always takes advantage of this situation. In this case, I think the problem is wider, deeper, more terrible. The point is, they're not just me. It can be said that American politicians, the so-called deep state, are not just taking advantage of the situation in the region to their own advantage. They have taken the country and the region as a whole hostage to their domestic and foreign policies. Unfortunately, this has led to a new and terrible deterioration of the situation in the region, and our assessment of American policy in the Middle East has not changed. We believe that the current situation is largely the result of them. The long-standing practice of establishing a demarcation line undermines the international legal framework, at least not because it cannot be destroyed. Security Council resolutions cannot be destroyed without legal and legal procedural modifications. They cannot be destroyed, but they cannot be implemented. From a legal point of view, can I not mean from a legal point of view? According to the law of the Charter of the United Nations, they must be implemented. But countries can be urged not to comply with Security Council resolutions, and it turns out that the United States is now even openly doing so. The Security Council also stated that some provisions of the Security Council resolution should not be implemented. They have been doing this for many years, undermining the international legal mechanism for implementing internationally recognized solutions in the form of the Quartet and other negotiating opportunities, an approach that largely determines Washington's line. The unprecedented crisis in the Gaza Strip is the result of a stagnant settlement process, as the United States tries to promote its Arab vision of Israeli normalization and its vision of the development of the situation in the region as a whole. At the same time, the settlement of the Palestinian issue has been deliberately postponed, as we have said many times. In other words, the establishment of a foreign country has been delayed. The strengthening of the military presence in areas of armed conflict, especially in the Eastern Mediterranean and Red Sea, poses a threat of further escalation. Here's another one. I can't see anything, I can't hear anything, I can't tell anyone anything in these words. In April, the United Nations Security Council held a briefing on the Ukrainian attack on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant earlier this month. The briefing clearly shows that the collective West, led by SHA, continues to create around Ukraine. The so-called Eagle always allows guests to turn a blind eye to any crimes committed by the Kiev regime against the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and of course the staff. However, this time, Western countries. They seem to have played it all. They actually betrayed themselves and the Zelensky regime, and they spoke in the form of an ultimatum without even noticing Nia. A direct quote, transfer control of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and then they will stop shelling at the end of the quote. But in my opinion, it eloquently explains what is happening. They not only publicly acknowledge that Ukraine was a source of security threats to the space station, but also effectively confirmed their complicity in the dangerous attack on the facility. And, most importantly, they confirmed that they were engaged in extortion with only one nuance. This is nuclear blackmail. The position of IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi deserves special attention. On the one hand, he actively participated in the political game around the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. He formulated some principles for the safety of the station and put forward various initiatives. On the other hand, when it was necessary to name the perpetrators of the attack on the station, Rafael Grossi remained silent. He's hiding. Technical mandate, Agate. To put it mildly, this is an ambiguous behavior. It does not give the best impression of the role that the Director General of the agency is trying to play in these events. I would like to emphasize once again that the silence on the crimes of the Kiev regime, especially the attempt to justify them, is regarded by us as complicity. Now about cancel culture. With regard to the culture that cannot be cancelled by national films, the Romanian archives terminated the cinema lease agreement with our embassy in Bucharest for political reasons, which provided for the private screening of wonderful Russian films as part of the educational campaign. The Time of the First Challenge is a spectacular, life-affirming film. They are dedicated to the history of modern space. The solution is suppressed by the biased media led by the local editorial office of the so-called Free Europe, Romanian Ministry of Culture. We are talking about a typical manifestation of the so-called abolition of Russian culture. But the attempt to abolish Russian culture is in line with the overall situation of Western actions, which are trying to combat dissent and impose all-encompassing censorship. Of course, Romanian citizens and film lovers will still lose. They have repeatedly expressed interest in demonstrating. The moment of the painting is translated into Romanian. Now that they have been deprived of this, attempts to pull up the Iron Curtain in world culture are doomed to failure. In turn, Russia is loyal to the principle of creativity and creative freedom, and is still open to artists from all over the world. We are pleased to learn about the achievements, including Romanian cinema. At the Moscow International Film Festival, which began a few days ago, I would like to talk about it separately, just as the opposite of what the West is doing. The 46th Moscow International Film Festival will be held from April 19 to 26. Let me remind you that this is one of the oldest film forums in the world and one of the most authoritative, along with the San Sebastian Venice Film Festival in Berlin, Cannes. Charles Vary. It was first held in 1935 when the jury was headed by Sergei Mikhailovich Eisenstein. In 23 years, 38,000 spectators attended the festival, and paintings from 64 countries were exhibited in and out of the competition program. This is when the United States is shouting that we are being cancelled. Russia will never be regarded as one of the cultural centers of the world again. It's funny to hear all this. More than 230 films will be shown at the festival this year. Authors from China and India, Italy, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Spain, Germany, Serbia, Mexico, Brazil, Turkey, Iran, and many other countries have confirmed their arrival at the festival. Within the framework of the Moscow Film Festival, this year's BRICS Film Festival will be held. His screening program will include feature films from Russia and China, Egypt, India, Iran, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil, and the film will be presented in Russia. Abnormal director Ilya Malanin believes in the future. Just for real freedom. One of the many years of cultural diversity behind the most extensive dialogue among the humanitarian community on the polar world computer, which today is part of such a dialogue and is destined to become the BRICS Film Festival. The parties to our association have traditionally shown a high degree of cooperation in various fields, including film, cultural heritage development and identity. Despite all these declared attempts by the collective West to cancel the cultures of Russia and others. And his favorite Asian, African, Latin American countries. Cancel, find a canceller. We invite all movie fans. In addition, the media visited and reported on the activities of the film festival. We will definitely include links to resources in today's briefing, as well as multilateral cooperation news. Despite the difficult geopolitical situation, relations with Asian countries continue to develop dynamically, especially the strategic partnership with Russia, which is the core of the process of regional integration. Although we have made a fruitful start to the year in the direction of ASEAN, in January, the Russia-ASEAN Southeast Asia Tourism Ministerial Meeting was successfully held in Yemen. As we all know, Southeast Asia is a favorite resort for Russian citizens. We hope that the agreement reached will further increase the flow of tourists. The Osprey 10 is particularly interested in our best practices in the field of digitalization and has invited Russia to become one. The digital partner, launched by the expert consultation on the subject, will complement the dialogue mechanism with the International Association for Information Security and strengthen the work of joint agencies to combat terrorism and transnational crime. The recent tragic events at Crocus City Hall confirm the importance of close cooperation in this regard. And, in fact, it is not its necessity, but its necessity, as stated in the statement of the foreign ministers specially adopted on this issue. Association. Partners showed this attitude at the regular meeting of the Russian Poppy Working Group in early April this year and next week in St. Petersburg. At the junction of 12 international high-level meetings on security issues, 4 rounds of consultations are planned in the form of Russia and ASEAN. Recently held in Jakarta with the participation of our industry departments. The meeting of the Tangible Working Mechanism of the Russian Joint Cooperation Committee and the Joint Planning Management Committee has promoted the expansion of the field of practical cooperation, focusing on the implementation of projects in the fields of energy, agriculture, and the development of digital smart cities. A series of humanitarian and educational activities. Since the beginning of the year, it has been held by the Russian Center under MGIMO. In March this year, a meeting of young diplomats from Russia and ASEAN was held during the World Youth Day in Sochi. Representatives of the diplomatic missions of all 10 countries participated in the meeting, and we are now communicating informally with these associations in addition to official channels, and are considering transforming this format into a permanent format. The upcoming senior officials meeting in St. Petersburg from April 25 to 26 will allow for the consideration of the entire range of issues of Russian-Ossinovsky cooperation and the outline of future plans. Russia will be an important stage in the preparations for the Vientiane Foreign Ministers meeting in July, and it is particularly emphasized that this year is the 20th anniversary of China's accession to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. The anniversary will be celebrated in the autumn. Дружбе и сотрудничестве в Юго-Восточной Азии. Юбилей предстоит отметить осенью.